promise of this country. It is so great to see so many faces here tonight, so many young faces, so many people ready to bring back the dream of good jobs, of home ownership, of a Canada that we all love and the Canada that we all want back. I'm here to introduce a couple of my colleagues, one from the very East Coast. We call him Landslide Rowe. We call him that because he won his riding in this past election by 14 votes. And he's been... And every single day since that, he's been fighting for young people around the country. I want to introduce you also to Eric Malillo. He's a three-time MP. He's only 27 years old, from Northern Ontario. These two guys are fighting the fight every single day on the House of Commons. I'm so proud to call them friends. I'm so proud to call them colleagues. You put your hands together for Jonathan Rowe and Eric Malillo.
Well, almost 4 years ago, I was in a room very similar to this in a small town of Newfoundland called Clarenville. And Pierre Poilievre came to my riding. And I said, that's the kind of leadership we need. I'm sick and tired of this Liberal government sacrificing my future. I was 24 years old, and I decided that I wanted to run. People said I was too young. Well, I'd be better off waiting. But older people would tell us we are the future. Oh, you're the future. I'm here today to tell you guys, to tell all of us, we're not only the future, we're today. The young men and women that went overseas, that fought for this country, the young tech brains that have molded our whole country, our whole world has been founded on the vision and the passion and the drive of young people. And we can feel that here tonight. And I have no doubt in my mind that this room will continue to change our nation, because we are not going to let this Liberal government sacrifice our future.
That's a tough act to follow. It's great to see such a great crowd here today, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be able to share a few words with you. As you heard, I'm Eric Malillo from Kenora, way up in northwestern Ontario. 27 years old and proud to be part of our Conservative team fighting for the future for all Canadians. I know I've heard from too many of my friends, from people that are around my age, not just where I come from in Kenora, but right across the country, that they're struggling to afford food, struggling to afford rent, given up completely on the dream of home ownership, and now more and more we're hearing people struggling to find a job. It's absolutely ridiculous, but this is the reality after 10 years of Liberal government. And that's why our Conservative team, under the leadership of Pierre Poilievre, is fighting to restore Canada's promise. That promise that you can work hard, play by the rules, get a good education and job training, and have a good life, have a good job, a house that you can afford in a safe neighborhood. It's a very simple promise, and that's the promise that we're fighting to restore. So that's why I'm so proud to see such a great contingent of MPs here today, a great crowd here for this incredible event. And I'm looking forward to hearing what the leader has to say about our plan to ensure that young Canadians can have an affordable place to call home, a good paying job, and hope and optimism for a better future. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
I believe in the importance of empowering youth voices within the Conservative movement and ensuring that our concerns are heard and represented in shaping Canada's future. Most of us here know firsthand how bad the situation is. We've seen the brutal job market for students and recent grads, inflation that drove the cost of living higher than we've ever known, and a housing market so bleak that many young people have given up hope of owning a home. That is why today I am proud to introduce the only leader fighting to restore our nation's promise for young Conservatives and Canadians. Pierre Poilievre grew up in Alberta as the adopted son of two school teachers. He lives in Ottawa with his wife, Anita, and their children, Valentina and Cruz. As a member of Parliament and former minister, he helped the previous Conservative government cut taxes, balance budgets, deliver affordable homes, and crack down on crime and corruption. When he was housing minister, the average home cost $450,000, and the average one-bedroom rent was just $970. After Liberals doubled housing costs, inflated food prices, and unleashed crime on our streets, Pierre is fighting back. His purpose is a Canada where young people can find good jobs to buy affordable food and homes on a safe street. Ladies and gentlemen, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada and His Majesty's Loyal Opposition, Pierre Poilievre.
Conservative Youth Caucus. And I said to Melissa Lansman, our deputy leader, who's very good at setting the rules, I said, I'm 46. Can I sneak in to the Youth Caucus? She said, no, it's definitely not 36, maybe 35. I said, well, 35 with inflation is 46. She wasn't buying it. But I want to thank Angelina for that wonderful introduction and for leading our campus conservative club, the biggest political club at the Mississauga campus of the University of Toronto. Give her a big round of applause. Like all our young conservatives are fighting for homes, jobs, and hope, and they refuse to sacrifice their future to the Liberal government. I want to thank all of you for being here, all these young people. We know that you all must be young because you're here listening to a speech about economics from a middle-aged or an aging politician rather than spending your evening trying to get approved for a $900,000 mortgage on a 400 square foot apartment. Maybe you're here today for the free snacks. You have some free snacks? We're in a time when a good meal is considered to be a juice box and a granola bar after Liberals doubled the cost of food and doubled, in fact what they did is they doubled the debt that you're going to have to inherit as the youth. And it's no coincidence when they doubled the debt, they actually doubled the food bank lineups and doubled housing costs. These things go together. Mark Carney and the Liberals are spending your tomorrow on their today with their irresponsible, costly big government policies. You know, Liberals tell us all that we shouldn't be talking about these substantive issues like debt and costs and inflation. They say that young people are only interested in vibes, like the vibe you get when you see that your rent is now $2,000 a month, or when you get to the checkout and you realize you have to put an item back on the shelf because your bank account has run empty before you finished making your purchase. Those are the types of vibes that we've gotten used to after 10 years of costly Liberal government. But Mark Carney promised there would be different vibes, that he was going to be a tight-fisted banker, and that he promised that he was going to move with unimaginable speed to do all of the opposite things that he talked about and that his party did for the prior 10 years. So now that it's been 7 months, it's a good time to review the promises that he's made and which have been kept. He promised we'd have the fastest growing economy in the G7. He delivered the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. He promised to double home building. His housing agency says home building is going to drop by 13%. He promised that he would be judged by the prices at the grocery store. He delivered. More expensive food. In fact, food prices are rising twice as fast as the Bank of Canada's target. And we just learned that 7% more people will be lined up at food banks this year than last year. This is after Liberals already doubled their lineups at those food banks. He promised he would negotiate a win with President Trump and get a deal by July 21st. Still no win, still no deal, still no elbows, still no jobs, my friends. He promised that he would change everything. In fact, everything is getting worse. You know, they tell us, though, they're just about to do all of these great things. That's the just about party, right? They remind me of the student you all know who is just about to stop procrastinating on that essay. Next week, he's going to stop procrastinating on that essay. Or it reminds me of when we used to go to the student pub at the University of Calgary, and there was that sign on the wall that said, "Free beer tomorrow." So you showed up tomorrow, and it still said, "Free beer tomorrow." But tomorrow never came, and beer prices would just keep going up and up and up. It reminds me of the lady who got married for her 4th time. And as she was leaving the wedding hall and driving with her new husband to the hotel, she said, "I'm feeling a little bit nervous." He said, "Why?" She said, "This is my first time being with a man." And he said, "Well, how is that possible? You've been married 3 times already." And she said, "Well, each of my prior husbands had a condition. My first husband had a heart condition. So when we got back to the hotel room, he got so excited that sadly he died of a heart attack. My second husband had an eye condition. And so he didn't see a tree as he was driving back to the hotel, and he hit it and didn't survive the crash." And the man said, "What about your third husband? What was his condition?" She said, "Well, he was a liberal." And so every night he would just sit at the end of the bed and promise how good it would one day be. You all heard Mark Carney gave this big hyped up speech. It was an address to the nation. He pulled these poor young people into a lecture hall, and boy, did he ever give them a sleepy lecture. It was very, very slow and very, very boring. It was almost like a gigantic tranquilizer. But you know, there was something different about this particular speech. I mean, he's been making all these grand promises, but that was not the case in this speech. Gone were the grand promises, replaced with grim warnings. He said that things are going to get worse, and the change will take a very long time, after he had promised to move at unimaginable speeds. And then he let the truth out of the bag. He said young people are going to have to make more sacrifices. More sacrifices. No more Mr. Carney, the young people in this room and across this country have already sacrificed enough. They have worked hard, they've done everything right, and they deserve a bright future of homes, jobs, and hope. Think of what you've already sacrificed for this costly Liberal government. You've sacrificed home ownership after they doubled the cost of buying a home. You've sacrificed your nutrition and health after Liberal food inflation drove up the costs at the grocery store. You sacrificed your paycheck at the altar of high Liberal income taxes. You sacrificed even your job to employment-killing taxes, red tape, and temporary foreign worker programs. In fact, this generation, and I mean this literally, this generation has sacrificed more than any, this young generation, I mean, has sacrificed more than any generation since the Second World War. There is no doubt in my mind that all of you are working harder and longer for less than your parents and probably your grandparents. And it hasn't been since the heroes that won us our freedom in the 40s that we have seen a generation work so hard and so long for so little. And all because of Liberal policies that have deprived you of the basics that you should have been able to take for granted here in Canada. Let's start with jobs. Youth unemployment today is 15%, the highest in a decade and a half. It is up from 13.7 when Mark Carney took office only 7 months ago. after he promised he would create more jobs. In fact, it's worse than that. It's not just the unemployment rate. It's the 3-decade record in the lows for the employment rate. Only 53% of youth who are between the ages of 15 and 24 are working. 53% is the lowest level since 1998. And most of you in this room weren't even born in 1998. That's how bad it is. And many of you are asking, as you drive around town, dropping off your resumes, you ask, what did I do wrong? Why can't I find a place to work? Hundreds and hundreds of resumes, no phone calls returned. The answer is, you did absolutely nothing wrong. You did everything right. Your phone should be ringing off the hook with job offers because you are qualified and you have been preparing for this moment to contribute to our economy. And my message to you is that Conservatives will fight for your jobs, and better than that, we will put in place the policies that will allow you to have it. Invite up on the stage an incredible young man, Liam. Liam, get up here and tell us about the state of jobs in this country. Where's Liam? There's Liam. Come on up here, Liam. Give Liam a round of applause.
Thank you. Many of my friends have shared the same story, sending out countless hundreds of applications, only to receive a handful of responses. In my first year of university, I was lucky enough to obtain a full-time internship that paid. Since then, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find meaningful work. Just this last summer, even getting a part-time minimum wage job has become more and more competitive with more and more applicants. Although I was eventually able to receive an unpaid internship, I'm worried as a graduate this year that I will not be able to find long-term meaningful work. Thank you.
Tragically, a story that's all too common, but Liam, we're here with a message of hope. We are not going to let the Liberals sacrifice your future. You will have a great job and you will bring home great pay and have a beautiful future. Thank you very much, Liam. Used to be, young people had no problem getting jobs. I remember there was a time not long ago when there was a shortage of workers. There were more jobs than people. A young person showed up with a clean shirt, a decent resume, a nice smile, and a good attitude would walk away with a job in just a few days. But today, that entire equation has changed. As we've seen that jobs have been blocked and killed by Liberal taxes that make our small businesses uncompetitive. They brought in anti-energy and resource laws that prevent us from digging mines, building pipelines, and generating other major private sector economic activity. And then they have further replaced Canadian workers with low-wage temporary foreign workers that drive down wages to profit Mark Carney's corporate lobbyist friends at the expense of Canadian youth. And speaking of newcomers, our young people who come from around the world with qualifications as doctors, engineers, nurses, and architects are banned from effectively working in the professions for which we need them by bureaucratic gatekeepers that won't grant them a license to practice, even though they are well qualified. Thank you. So while we have young immigrant doctors who are forced to drive Uber, we have 6 million Canadians who don't have a doctor. This is insane. You know, they say in Toronto, if you have a heart attack, don't call 911. Call an Uber because the driver is probably a doctor. And yet we block those brilliant young immigrants from working in the field for which we so desperately need them. And speaking of our immigration system, we had the best immigration system in the world, where we brought people in reasonable numbers that we could absorb into our jobs, our health care, and our housing market. But Liberals totally destroyed the system with chaos, numbers that were too high, and without doing proper criminal background checks on people coming to this country. And this has served nobody, not newcomers, not multi-generational Canadians, not our economy, housing market, or healthcare. And our young people have suffered the most. Young people in Canada are welcoming, and we want to bring people, the best people from around the world, but we should only do it in the right numbers, in numbers we can absorb, so that we can have housing, healthcare, and jobs for all. And speaking of housing, you are the first generation in Canadian history that cannot afford a home. It used to be taken for granted that if you got a good job right out of school, you paid off your student debts quickly, you could buy a house and start a family in your 20s. It was normal for 26 and 27-year-old couples to own a house with a yard and space in a safe neighborhood. That is what we took for granted in this country. But over the last decade, Liberals have literally doubled the cost of housing, with regulatory red tape that blocks home builders from building, high taxes that make up more than a third of the cost